All right. Good evening, everyone. Today is January 9th, 2025. Happy New Year. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Hyde Park Central School District to order. And at this time, I'd like a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or persons.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're now in executive session. Evening, everyone. We're now going to return to our open session. If everyone can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See, I tripped on it. Thank you. Okay. I don't think we have any modifications to the agenda, so 4.3, can I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Second, Tibbetts.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 5.1, upcoming events. Monday, January 13th, Ralph R. Smith Winter Concert at FDR, 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, January 15th, Hyde Park Education Foundation meeting is at HPE at 6 p.m. And 8th grade scheduling orientation night is at FDR, 6:30 p.m. Thursday, January 16th, North Park Elementary Winter Concert at FDR, 6:30 p.m. Monday, January 20th, no school for Martin Luther King Day, all locations. January 23rd is our next Board of Education meeting, and that'll be at District Office at 7 p.m. Any other events? Okay. Moving on to 6.1, Pride.
Hold on.
Okay, so these are some pictures from Violet Avenue. The Violet Avenue principal and secretary would like to thank Mr. Foster and Mr. Robinson from the Facilities and Operations Department for taking time out of their busy schedules to teach fourth graders about the Hyde Park Central School District Energy Program, and for giving the students the opportunity to see the boiler room downstairs and to see how the energy is used and saved within the building. So these pictures are just a few of that were captured during the time where they were being presented. So the students got an opportunity to really see, kind of what was going on in the school. At North Park, they have created our 5th grade mural, which was designed and inspired by surveys of staff and students that embodied what they valued at North Park. This is where students and staff can put down B. So like they're kind of replacing the B, the I in kind, to what they think represents them. All 5th graders had a chance this week to contribute and paint a portion of this mural. At FDR, they're doing Regents prep for the upcoming Regents that are going to be taking place. And like you mentioned, the 8th grade scheduling orientation is January 15th. We will be having FDR students kind of share the experience to help 8th graders with their transition into high school, and having the 8th graders see how students in high school, kind of their perspective on the experience. And that's all.
You guys are up next. Can you?
At this time, I'd like to ask, this is for David.
Yep.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask Principal Darling to meet me at the podium. This is the portion of the board meeting where with pride we celebrate our portrait of a learner and you guys, were you able to hear me? Okay, so I'll repeat myself. So at this point in the meeting, we are excited to celebrate 2 individuals tonight, 1 student and 1 employee, who exemplify our attributes in our portrait of a learner and portrait of employee. Those attributes include being a confident learner, effective communicator, adaptive innovator, critical thinker, and responsible citizen. So, Mr. Darling.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Mason, if you could come join me up here. Good evening and Happy New Year to our Board of Education, District Office, and community members. My name is Matt Darling, Principal at Ralph R. Smith, and tonight I have the distinct pleasure of recognizing Mason Bradley with the Portrait of a Learner Award. I'll start by sharing a few words from Mason's 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Bruggeman. Mason exemplifies what it means to be a confident learner every day. He arrives at school ready to face any challenges that come his way, demonstrating his adaptability and innovative drive by exploring new solutions. He diligently works on each assignment, showcasing his critical thinking skills, especially in mathematics. Mason excels both independently and as a leader among his peers, effectively communicating and collaborating to achieve group goals. His sense of humor is contagious, making him a pleasure to be around. As a responsible citizen, Mason consistently does the right thing and encourages others to do the same. Mason's drive and commitment to personal growth are truly inspiring, and we look forward to witnessing his continued success and positive influence on those around him. My experience working with Mason over the last few years has been similar to Mrs. Bruggeman's. I've watched Mason grow both as an individual and in his leadership capacity. Recently, I had the opportunity to join Mason in a game of soccer outside. One of the things that I noticed pretty quickly was his ability to dribble by everybody on the field, including myself. Although Mason could dribble by everybody, he chose not to. I watched as he continually looked to pass to and integrate other members of his team. This is a small moment that indicates Mason's, the way he carries himself on a daily basis. It gives me a great honor to recognize Mason with this award, and I have to say he's truly one of the most responsible citizens I've had the pleasure of working with. Congratulations, Mason. You want to do a picture?
We were going to do a picture with the board like last time after we do the employee and have everybody up.
So Mason, I'll have you come stand right here while you wait, okay? Ms. Lorenz, can you come on up?
Okay.
Next, I'd like to recognize the exceptional dedication, passion, and unwavering commitment of a truly remarkable individual. It's with great pleasure that we recognize Mrs. Lorenz, a 1st grade teacher at Ralph R. Smith, with the Portrait of an Employee Award. Mrs. Lorenz has not only shaped the minds of countless students, but has also inspired teachers and myself with their tireless efforts in education. She's a teacher who goes beyond the curriculum. She doesn't just teach lessons, she instills a love of learning, encourages curiosity, and fosters an environment where every child feels valued and capable. Whether it's through high-quality instruction, thoughtful encouragement, or her constant positivity, she embodies what it means to be an educator. Her classroom is more than just a place for academic growth. It's a sanctuary where students feel safe, respected, and excited to explore the world around them. It's clear to see that Mrs. Lorenz holds the belief that every student has the potential to achieve greatness, and she works tirelessly to ensure that they do. In addition to the incredible work that she does in her classroom, Mrs. Lorenz is a commiserate professional. Over the last year, she's actively participated in our BLT, TSI committee, PBIS program, Literacy Audit Committee, MTSS committee, Sunshine Committee. She's also planned many events throughout the building, and in her free time, she's an intern as a union representative for the HPTA. Mrs. Lorenz's selfless approach to working with students, staff, and families is undeniable. On behalf of the entire school community, it's an honor to present you with this award. Congratulations, and thank you for all you do for Ralph R. Smith.
think you have some pride, right?
Good evening, everyone. Want to wish everyone a happy new year. The only point of pride that I have that I wanted to share, because we have three amazing presentations that are going to be coming before you, is we have one of our high school students, FDR student, who is being recognized at the Martin Luther King Honoree Breakfast and Scholarship. And so I want to share with you just a few words from a letter of support that I wrote. We don't often get a chance to take moments to really share all the great things that many of our students are doing, especially as administrators. So I had a chance to have an opportunity to meet Jaylena through her counselor. And so I want to share a few words that I was able to put together for her. So Jaylena is a high-achieving student who consistently challenges herself academically. She has diligently pursued rigorous coursework, including advanced placement courses and dual enrollment classes at Dutchess Community College. This proactive approach demonstrates her hard work ethic, and commitment to personal growth. Beyond academics, Jaylena is a remarkable role model and leader within our school community. Her involvement in basketball extends beyond the court. As a dedicated team captain, she fosters a positive and supportive environment for her teammates. Moreover, Jaylena actively gives back to the community by hosting basketball clinics for younger girls, inspiring them to pursue their passions and build confidence. Jaylena's commitment to service is further evidenced by her volunteer work at the local soup kitchen, where she serves others with compassion and empathy. This dedication to helping those in need reflects her strong character and desire to make a positive impact on the world. Jaylena's ambition to pursue a career in psychology or social work is a testament to her desire to uplift others and create a more just and equitable society. I am confident that she will excel in her future endeavors and become a valuable asset to any community college she joins. So she will be recognized in the coming weeks at an MLK ceremony. And so just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the positive contributions that she's making to our school community. So let's give her a round of applause. And that concludes my items. Thank you.
Any other pride from anyone? No. All right, moving on to 7.1, your superintendent report.
At this time, I'm going to be just passing it on to our presenters.
So next up is Mr. Darling. Here's the clicker.
Oh, thank you.
I would throw it, but.
So first off, I'd like to just recognize our kindergarten classes who took some time to make some cards for the Board of Ed members tonight and our district office staff. So I want to thank the teachers and students who took the time to do that. I also want to recognize Mrs. Torres, our art teacher. Every year she takes time to come in early in the morning and set up the artwork you see in the backdrop here. And there was a lot of hard work from our students put into that. So I want to recognize that. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to discuss how we're working to empower all learners to be successful members of our dynamic society and create an innovative learning environment for all in line with the Hyde Park Central School District mission and vision. And I'd like to start on that front by highlighting some of the students at Ralph R. Smith. And so you'll see here on the board, we have a 5th grade safety patrol that's pictured, actually right in front of our new playground that the board approved last summer, so thank you for that. And so our 5th grade safety patrol group is a group that we started last school year. Our 5th graders take time to submit applications to that. This year we added another element to that process where they are selected for an interview with me. They come down to the main office and I ask them a series of questions. And we were able to to identify many students, about 15 students who are able to participate on that safety patrol group this year. They have different responsibilities throughout the day. They have a post at arrival and a post at dismissal, with a real focus on helping to be role models for the younger students in the building, helping to give positive reminders for students to stay safe as they walk around the building, and providing support and encouragement for some of our younger students. I'm going to ask 3 students to come on up and share their perspective about Safety Patrol. Gianna, Zaid, and Joey, come on up.
Just parents, feel free to come up and take a picture.
They're all very excited.
If you want.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zaid Husani. I'm in 5th grade here at Ralph R. Smith. I applied for both Student Council and Safety Patrol because I always wanted to have a job in school and be a part of a team. What I like about it is that there are so many different cool jobs around the school. For example, one job I have on Student Council is to go to the kindergarten's class to help support students with their work and to help teachers with getting supplies. On Safety Patrol, I go outside with the 1st graders for their recess. My job is to keep them from making unsafe choices. When I started, I felt like a leader and I was proud of myself. Thank you, Mr. Darling, for picking me to be on these teams and for inviting me to speak with the board tonight.
Hello, my name is Joey, and I am a 5th grader student in Miss Bergman's class. This year, I applied to be a part of Ralph R. Smith's Safety Patrol. I applied to be on the Safety Patrol team because it's fun to help others and it's kind. I think that it is fun and kind because it's nice to see people to look up to me. Some of the things that I enjoy about being on Safety Patrol team are that I can help the school and help others. I think that our 5th grade Safety Patrol is important because you can help and make the school safe.
Hello, my name is Gianna. Donato, and I am a 5th grade student in Miss Warp and Miss Torres's class. This year, I applied to be part of Ralph R. Smith Safety Patrol. I applied to be on the Safety Patrol team because I enjoy helping people. Some of the things that I enjoy about being on Safety Patrol team are I enjoy helping other people. I enjoy standing outside and helping. I enjoy going outside with the kindergartners. I think that our 5th grade Safety Patrol is important because we help keep people safe.
Do you mind if I have them stand right in here for a quick picture? Is that okay? If you want to come right over here. I don't want to relocate everybody again, so just so Tom and Dad have an opportunity. Good. You're welcome to come on up. It's all about that angle, right? All right. Great. Thank you all. Great job, Joey. All right, so I want to thank all the students and families who took the time to come out for those awards and that recognition. I do want to give you an option. You're welcome to stay for the whole presentation, but it is a school night and we have a lot of work to do tomorrow, so now would be a good time to head out if you would like to. So moving on, I'd like to start by just sharing our building goals for this school year. So you may remember over the summer, I think it was the August 8th board meeting, we took some time, Dr. Brown and I, to share the district's DSIP plan and the Ralph R. Smith SEP plan. And for the board members and community members who are new to this process or may not be aware of it, that's because Ralph R. Smith was identified through the Office of Accountability at New York State as a school in need of improvement, otherwise known as a Targeted Support and Improvement, or TSI school, specifically in the area of students with disabilities. And so we were required to put a plan together to address those gaps. And basically the 3 goals that we worked on identifying over the course of last year, we framed with students with disabilities at the forefront of our mind, but we believe that the work in these areas will positively impact all students at Ralph R. Smith. And so the 3 goals are better alignment to the science of reading, so a real focus on literacy that I'll talk more about, supporting character development and school connectedness through a PBIS approach, and improving attendance within the building. And so on the next slide here, you may remember from the summer, we identified several strategies or action steps that we were confident were going to move us towards improvement in those areas. And so I'll talk a little bit about each one of those. The first goal, the alignment of the science with the science of reading, excuse me. The first and main component of that was explicit phonics instruction at the K to 2nd grade level. And so Jen Kreiser in our district office and many teachers that participated on the Literacy Audit Committee last year identified UFly, a phonics curriculum, as a good opportunity to implement that explicit phonics instruction for our youngest students and to really build those foundational reading skills. And so we had several teachers pilot that over the course of last spring. We saw some really impressive results from that program early on, and the district as a whole actually implemented that full scale at the kindergarten to 2nd grade level over the course of this year so far. And then as a tier 2 resource in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade level, because we have several students, as you'll see in some of the data I share tonight, that still haven't picked up those foundational reading skills in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And so that's an area that we want to continue to provide support, or targeted support in. The next strategy that we identified was the writing revolution, which is essentially writing strategies that are evidence-based. We completed a book study here at Ralph R. last year with that in mind, and then our focus was sharing that information with the whole staff. Some of the feedback that I got from the board over the summer, and something we were cognizant of with teachers, was initiative fatigue. We have a lot of plans and a lot of big ideas, but we want to be cognizant to implement them in a strategic way. And so the writing revolution is something that we've identified as an area that we're going to focus on in the second half of this school year, with our primary focus and kind of what we think is going to be the most bang for our buck in the UFly program at the kindergarten to 2nd grade level. What we know is that if we try to throw too many new things at teachers at once, they're not able to implement them with fidelity because they need time and training to implement new programs and strategies. And so that's something we're trying to be cognizant of here at Ralph R. And the last thing that we focused on for literacy is our basically differentiated literacy instruction for students to meet them at their current level. And so what we've done on that front is partnered with Dr. Katie Cunningham, who wrote the book Shifting the Balance that you may be familiar with on Amazon. So she's actually spent 2 full days this week, in addition to days earlier in the year, spending time. She was able to get into every classroom at Ralph R. this week besides 2 of them, and was able to meet with each grade level to debrief, to identify strengths and challenges that they're facing within their literacy block, and help us get suggestions on how we can best move forward to support our students. So she's been an invaluable asset that we're really happy that we were able to connect with through this work, and we look forward to continue, to picking her brain as she's an expert in the field, and working with her more in the future. The second goal, as I said, was PBIS and character development at Ralph R. And some of the things that we identified and have put in place so far this year are meaningful work, which is basically expanding on the idea of classroom jobs and creating building-wide jobs. And so you might remember at a recent board meeting, the board had approved stipended positions for both that coordinator position, the Meaningful Work Coordinator, as well as a PBIS coach position that's related to this goal. And so those individuals have already stepped up in massive ways to create opportunities for our students that weren't otherwise available previously. And so we're excited to see some of those things and how they have a positive impact on both student perceptions as well as our next goal, which is improving student attendance. The other strategies that we've identified for this year are implementing restorative practices at the elementary level and trying to create more enrichment opportunities for students in terms of before and after school clubs or learning opportunities, which is something that, similar to the writing revolution, something that we're going to be focused more on the second half of the school year. And lastly, a focus on attendance. And so I'll share a slide later on in the presentation because we are proud of the work we've done on that front in terms of improving or lessening chronic absenteeism at Ralph R. Smith, but there's still more work to be done, and we're going to continue the things that we had put in place previously and add to them. And some of those are monthly attendance team meetings with our social emotional staff, our school nurse, even looping in our school security monitor, Mr. Sampson, as well as some of the things I mentioned previously, which are the Meaningful Work initiative or school-wide jobs that students have, and a PBIS approach. And so you might have noticed I left what we call a Hoot Loot card on each of your seating areas there. And so that's basically our positive praise for students who are meeting our building level expectations in line with our PBIS program. And so last year at my presentation, I shared that our 5th grade student council had created a list of values or expectations that they felt encompassed what it's like to be a Ralph R. Smith student and what we prioritize. And this year we were able to implement this new approach to more frequently recognize students for those positive behaviors and expectations. And so you all are being such great listeners, I figured I'd give you a Hoot Loot card. And so what we do with those is we have a ballot box in the main lobby where students, when they receive a card, they can drop it in there. And then every Friday we do a drawing. We select 10 students. They come down to the lobby to take a picture. They get a book vending machine token, and then they get 30 minutes of extra recess the following Monday with a friend of their choice. And so it's been a really positive initiative, and I want to thank all of our teachers and staff for helping implement that and helping reinforce that on a daily basis. And so on your way out, be sure to drop those in the mailbox, and I'll give you a call if you have extra recess next week. And so those are our overarching goals for the year, but I do want to share some data and information from last school year's New York State assessment program, and then I'll be talking a little bit about the MAPS program, or MAPS testing that we do. And so this first slide depicted here is a representation of the New York State ELA test that the students took last spring. So this was during the 23-24 school year. And so just to help you ascertain the chart a little bit, the salmon color is representative of Ralph R. Smith, the yellow color represents the district average, and the blue color is New York State's average. And so you can see there in 3rd grade, Ralph R. Smith's average in terms of proficiency, so we had 27% of students that were proficient on the 3rd grade New York State ELA test. The district as a whole on average had 28% students proficient in 3rd grade, and New York State's average in comparison was 43%. Something I want to I'd ask that you keep in mind throughout the New York State assessment slides is that if you're not aware, Ralph R. Smith houses our 1211 special education program, which is something we're very proud of. But just to keep in mind with these New York State assessments, in 3rd grade, for example, the New York State average percentage of students with disabilities is 19%. Our cohort of 3rd graders last year, 44% of the students in 3rd grade were students with disabilities. And so it's a little difficult to compare our performance with the New York State average when there is some of that disproportionality or it's kind of apples to oranges in that sense. But with that being said, these are areas that we've identified as in need of improvement, and the teachers I really have to commend this year for their continued dedication to that in terms of positive impact on student achievement. So when we take a look at our fourth graders in ELA, that's a cohort of students that was in kindergarten during COVID, and since my first year here has really, so our current fifth graders now, has really been our focus area in terms of both behavioral and academic support. And so we've tried many different strategies over the course of the last few years to positively impact their growth. This year, I will say, I want to shout out our fifth grade team, because over the first month and a half or so of instruction, after we took the MAPS assessment in ELA, we did see the highest performance of that cohort in the time that I've been here. So that is something that we're proud of and are going to continue to work on in terms of turning this 23% proficiency in reading into a much higher number. And then our fifth graders last year performed consistently with the district average, but still 9% below the state average in ELA. And so the next slide here is a depiction of the New York State math scores from last spring. Ralph R. Smith in third grade, we had 30% of students were proficient in math, compared to the district's 38 and the state's 54%. In fourth grade, we were 27%, and in fifth grade, we were 39% proficient. The next slide is a depiction of the science state test from last spring. So you can see that was a new assessment. Previously, it had been given to fourth and eighth graders. And then last year was a shift to fifth graders that took that assessment. Our fifth graders scored 33% proficient, compared to the district average 28% and the state average 35%. And again, I want to shout out our fifth grade team, because while 33% is nothing, or a 35% average for the state is nothing to be excited about in terms of proficiency, looking at that test, it was very difficult. And it was the first administration of the New York State Science Test. So I was very proud of the way our students came in. We had many students that worked the entire day on that assessment. And whether or not they met proficiency, I was very proud of the effort that they put forth on that, and the work that our fifth grade teachers put into preparing them for that. And I remember a comment from Mrs. Gattani last year that stuck with me, and I know your sentiment had a lasting impact on several of our teachers, because I spent a lot of time talking about state tests, and I remember you saying that doesn't really paint the full picture of our students. And so I wanted to share some of the MAPS data from so far this year, which is an adaptive assessment, and shows us kind of where students are without just testing them on their grade level standards. And so looking at our ELA MAPS data from the fall of 23 to the fall of 24, you'll see on this slide that in the fall of 23, the average percentile at Ralph R was 41st percentile. And so that means students tested higher on average than 41% of their peers across the nation that take that assessment, which is below the 50th percentile, obviously. Over the course of the last year, we improved that percentile to the 45th percentile, which is something that we're proud of and will continue to make improvements upon. In terms of our math scores, we had growth as well over the last year. In the fall of 23, on average, students tested in the 42nd percentile. In the fall of 24, that rose to the 45th percentile on average. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, our focus with the TSI work has really been on our students with disabilities, because that's our subgroup that we were identified for. And so I want to shout out Rick Wirt in our tech department, because they were able to input all of our students with disabilities into the MAPS, the NWEA program, so that we could disaggregate the data in that way. And so looking at that specific subgroup of students, in fall of 23, the average performance on the MAPS test for reading was in the 10th percentile. And in the fall of 24, the average score or average percentile was the 23rd percentile in reading. So in the matter of over the course of a year, we saw about a 13% gain in that area, which is, again, something that we're proud of and speaks to the work of our teachers on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, I want to share our chronic absenteeism data. So just for your awareness, being chronically absent is defined as missing 18 or more days in a given school year, which is equivalent to 10% of the school year. In the 21-22 school year, which was after the year after the blue or the green and gold cohort where students were alternating, there was a 33% chronically absent population at Ralph R. Smith. The following year, it decreased to 23.5%. In the 23-24 school year, it was 18.5%. And so far this year, we're sitting at 15.2%. So I want to shout out our teachers who are on the front lines communicating with families on a regular basis about the importance of coming to school regularly, and as well as our social emotional staff who have frequently reached out to help support families or connect them with the new community schools liaison, Melissa Rosario. And with that, again, I want to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity to share some of the things that we've been focused on and some of the improvements that we've made over the last few years, as well as some of the areas that we're still focused on continuing to improve upon. I'd like to shout out our whole staff, all of our faculty members who have been so supportive throughout this TSI process, which can be taxing on folks. And they've really put their heads down and gotten to work and done everything they can to improve student outcomes. And most importantly, I want to shout out our students, our families, our PTA, and our community members who have just shown such ongoing support for all of us just in the last few years since I've been here. So thank you, everybody. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Just to go back through a couple of things, looking at the scores, which I've shared isn't a full picture, but I want to check back on something we had talked about last year, because we know we have coaches, math and ELA coaches that are supporting instruction, and then we have AIS staff that supports Tier 2 and Tier 3. But like 2 years ago, we were having problems with substitutes so that AIS services weren't always as consistent as they could be because we've got to cover classrooms. So that staff was kind of juggled around. So my question is, are you feeling that the AIS supports are consistent now? Have we fixed the sub problem? Or is that something that we should still be looking at? Because if we want to improve, we need those Tier 2 and Tier 3 students to get those supports. And I just don't know if that's happening.
Great question. And thank you for bringing that up again. So at the Tier 3 level, where we have certified teachers providing those small group intensive interventions, our reading teachers and math AIS teachers, we don't pull them. So the only time that they wouldn't receive that service would be if there was a teacher absent and also a shortage of substitutes in the building, in which case we wouldn't be able to backfill that position. So predominantly students are always receiving those Tier 3 services. In terms of Tier 2 services, students in reading at Ralph R., and I can't speak for the whole district because it's a little bit different everywhere on this front, but Tier 2 services are provided by a teaching assistant. And so if we are in a situation where we're shorthanded on those days, which we try to avoid at all costs, and our main office staff do a fantastic job of trying to get ahead of those situations, but we do unfortunately pull our teaching assistants to fill in as potentially classroom teachers in those instances. I could we have a chart that has I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I do have a number of minutes that they are pulled for, and would be able to make a comparison between this year and last year. I know last year at certain points it was a very substantial amount of time we were pulling them, unfortunately. I will say, anecdotally, I believe there's been some improvement in that. But we continue to, monitor positions can be difficult to fill. One-to-one aid positions can be difficult to fill. And so those are some challenges, yes.
I just want to make sure, because we've had a turnover in HR too, so we just want to make sure as new people come on that that's a priority, that we try and advertise for these positions and get our sub lists really robust, so that we're not canceling, because obviously we have to staff certain programs. So I just wanted to get a sense as we're looking at the big picture and going into budgets, what's the priority.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darling. I want to first congratulate you on the absenteeism data. I realize there's still room to grow, but it seems to me going from 33 to 15 is a pretty dramatic improvement. So congratulations on that to you and your whole team. Can we talk about test scores a little bit? I always have trouble trying to figure out what to make of how to make sense of these. And you quite rightly point out that comparing to the New York State, given the differences in the number of students with needs, is maybe not the best comparison. Maybe don't even include it. But what I'm, the kind of data that I always appreciate is cohort data. So how did the fourth graders this year do comparatively relative to when they were third graders last year? And I'm not asking you to have that data right now. I'm just saying that those are the kinds of, and I know it's hard, you're trying to please a whole bunch of people on the board, but that's my 2 cents. I really like seeing the cohort data. I want to see how this group of kids is improving over time.
Yeah, and that's something we certainly look at as a staff and are aware of. And one of the things to be aware of with that is that when you're scoring a 2 in third grade, meaning you're approaching expectations in reading, but you haven't reached proficiency, to then go to fourth grade where the expectations are higher and you're not quite proficient in third grade yet, that's something we're really focused on, is how quickly can we address that new curriculum and make sure students are getting that new curriculum and those new skills, but also hitting that third grade curriculum that they clearly were not successful with. And so Jen Kreiser has done a lot of work with our fourth grade teachers last year to really focus in on specifically students who scored a 1 previously. And can we, whether it's affecting our proficiency score or not, can we look closely at moving those students from a 1 to a low 2 score, or to a high 2 score, or potentially, ideally, a 3, although that would be rare. So yes, I could get you more information on that.
But to me, that's the gold standard, not so much how many at 3 or 4, although that's great, but how many from each one can we move into the next one up? That, to me, is the real.
Yes, and to your point, the other downside of looking just at a singular year, or a comparison of fourth grade year over year, is that it's a different group of students, and so that always changes performance. So thank you.
And just to follow on to what Mike said, when you look at your data for third, fourth, and fifth, we're definitely closing the gap, right, from where we are to the state average. It would be good to see the cohort to see if we are doing the right things early on. We may have a bigger gap, but we're doing the right thing to eventually in fifth grade close that gap. Mm-hmm. With 1 year of data with 3 different classes, it's hard to tell, but sort of implies that, right? So it would be good to see, the cohorts being followed through to see if we're doing the right things early on to, come pretty close to the state average here. Mm-hmm. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another question about your before and after school programs. Are they remedial, enrichment?
So one of the big focuses of our TSI work, based on the surveys from students and families, was a connection to school and a positive perception of school, and students feeling like they don't necessarily love coming to school. And so that was coming from the survey 2 years ago and some of the takeaways that we had. And so some of the priority areas that we identified were providing enrichment in terms of potentially intramural sports options, some crafting options, phonics clubs and things of that nature. And so we've been working with Jessica Turner over the course of this year to envision what that looks like this spring, because one of the things that is a barrier is transportation at the elementary level. At the middle school level, there's busing, obviously late buses and high school, and so we're trying to come up with some creative solutions for that, because what we don't want is to not allow all students an opportunity to participate in those things.
And so I would agree with some colleagues. It's very good to see the cohort data. What you showed us was the New York State data from last spring, of course, and it was broken down very well, grade 3, 4, and 5. The MAPS data is the pre-assessment data, of course, from the fall. When are you taking the mid-year assessments for MAPS?
Yeah, great question. We're scheduled to take those between the 27th of January and the 12th of February. And then once we've administered that diagnostic assessment, we'll spend time at faculty meetings and SPL mornings for staff to look through that data and determine, with the things we put in place, are we making improvements from our fall scores so that we can work towards meeting our targets for the spring MAPS assessment, but also the New York State assessments.
Sure. Obviously, that data is not available yet, but when it's available, I think that would be also helpful. We'd appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Up next, we have our athletics update with Ms. Fletcher.
All right, so good evening, everyone. I'm Beth Fletcher. I'm the Director of Health, PE, and Athletics. Before we get started, I just want to say that, call me crazy, but I actually truly love my job. So when I get up here and say I'm excited to tell you guys about what's going on in health and PE, I truly am excited to tell you guys what's going on in health and PE. So I'm going to start off with just a brief video clips of some of our athletic events that we had during the fall and a little bit of the winter. I thought student athletes participating in the room might be a little unsafe, so I went with the video option. That I had taken throughout all of our events. So I'm going to start off with, is this my slide? So I did have 3 goals, but I don't know how it turned into 2, but I'm going to talk about all 3. So I'm going to start off with the goals for the athletic department for this school year. My first goal was to provide peer academic support for students that are at risk for non-participation in extracurricular activities. My second goal that I had on there is not on this slide was a director's goal that we all kind of collaborated on together, and it was to try and reduce the amount of time that teachers are out of the classroom, and we do that in athletics by being very intentional about when teachers and coaches are leaving for athletic trips, and we work closely with transportation to try and keep teachers in the classroom as long as possible, as well as our students in the classroom as long as possible for instruction. So that's how we support that goal. And then my last goal has to do with attendance, and it's running daily attendance reports for student athletes to ensure that we're in compliance with district policy and also being equitable throughout all our student athletes. The first thing I want to talk about is our eligibility procedure. That has changed from last year to this year, so this is the first year we're implementing a new procedure. The main highlights of the procedure are if students are failing more than one class, they are essentially on probation in order to, which you can practice, but you cannot participate in athletic events. In order to get off probation, you have a 2-week period in which you either have to bring your averages up to 65 or better, or new this year, you can meet criteria 2. In order to be reinstated, you have to have yeses in the all categories of criteria 2, which is you're staying after for extra help, all your assignments are in, you show more effort in class, your overall effort has improved. The reason why we came up with criteria 2 as a committee last year was because we do have some students that try to push themselves and take AP classes or DCC classes that they might be struggling in, but they're trying to push themselves and go that little extra mile. So it provides a little bit of grace for students that are pushing themselves a little bit harder, or a student that just might really struggle in a certain content area and they're trying really hard. They have all their assignments and they're working really hard, but the subject might just be difficult for them. Some data that we have on academic eligibility this year, going into the first quarter, 94% of our student athletes were eligible, and we had about 6% of students, or 20 students, that were ineligible. The coaches met with students, I met with students, and after 2 weeks, it was reduced to about 3%, so about half of those students were reinstated till full participation. Going towards the end of the first quarter, we had 97, and this is also going into the winter season, so new season. We had about 97% of athletes that were eligible and about 2.5% that were ineligible, 7 athletes. The interventions that I implemented at the time was I met with students, but then I also contacted families and required students to attend the Students First program after school, and that Students First provides extra support for the athletes. So for, say you were failing 2 subjects, you had to stay after school 1 day per subject. And then the impact after the second quarter 5-week progress check came out, 99% of our athletes were eligible for full participation. And then you will see, this is second quarter, this is the latest second quarter progress reports. We had about, it kind of spiked up a little bit. We have about 6.3% or 18 athletes that were failing 2 or more subjects. This set of athletes was completely different from the other ones. It just happened to be like new students. And same thing as far as interventions, met with students, contacted families, required students to attend Students First, and I'm happy to report as of today, I have only 1 athlete that is still ineligible, and most of them are more back to full participation. This year, one of my focuses, as I was talking about earlier, is really to help support student athletes that are struggling. I talked about the Students First program, so students who are ineligible or in that probationary period have to attend Students First. Students First is a program that they have after school for struggling students that are failing classes. They get extra support. What I found with Students First is they don't offer every content area, so I did have some athletes that couldn't attend Students First because the area that they were struggling was not offered. So that's kind of where I came up with the peer tutoring, which is in the exploratory stage. And the goal is to pair student athletes, a strong one and one struggling in a content area, and find some time after school for them to work together. The latest in this is that I just sent out a survey to all student athletes for the winter, and I asked students what they're struggling in and what they need support in, but then on the other end, I asked what they're strong in and how they could help other peers. And it was actually really interesting to see because a lot of the people that said they were struggling were not even the athletes that were ineligible. So I think it's a good starting point moving forward where like hopefully we can get these athletes paired and work together and have that extra support before they become ineligible. My other goal had to do with our district initiative, which is absenteeism. I run a daily report of all our student athletes. Student athletes have to be in school for at least 4 periods a day, and they have to have excused absences. So at 150 every day, and even today in our meetings, you'll hear my alarm go off on my phone, so I don't forget to run the report. But at 1:50 every day, I run the report, and I highlight in yellow all the students, as you can see in this picture over here, that have been absent for 4 or more periods, and then I send it to all our coaches. The coaches have found this incredibly helpful. It does take a little bit of work to get it started, so we have to have our rosters first, and then Marge Gibson helps me create the class, and then I put all the athletes in the class, and then once we get that going, then I can run the report every day. So even like the first couple weeks of the season, coaches were asking me like, when are we getting the attendance report? When are we getting the attendance report? The coaches that are not in the district or in the building especially enjoy the report because they can check up on their athletes. It has period by period data too, so you can notice trends. Like you can ask, like, if you notice somebody is late every day to third period, it's like, hey, you know, like, what do you have third period? Why is it that you're late every day at this time? So they enjoy it. They can check up on their athletes. It also makes it more equitable through all our athletes. In the past, last year was my first year, so last year I would have every once in a while somebody come up to me and be like, hey, you know, so-and-so didn't show up till 7th period today, they can't participate. And one student gets flagged, where this makes it more equitable for all, that we're making sure that everybody is held to the same standard. Enhanced safety measures is something that we really focused on the fall and we've carried into the winter. We have implemented our no bag policy that started at football and has been implemented through all of our winter events, anything that's in the gym at FDR. For students, we do have a bag check for the winter, so if you're staying after school and then you are going to an athletic event, then we have a bag check where you can securely put your bag before you go into the gym. One thing I want to say with this is there was a lot of research before I went into it and before we implemented the policy. We did research and talked to all the other districts in the section, and there was over 15 districts in the section that were already implementing the bag policy. And ones that weren't are ones that had like logistical issues where their field doesn't have an entry and an exit point and they can't really control access. So it's something that everybody in the section, or a lot of people, are working towards, but some people aren't there yet. Community engagement. So we applied for a T-Mobile grant in the fall, and we were awarded $5,000. So I sent out a survey to students to ask where they would like to spend that $5,000. Most requests that I got back is some sort of barbecue or some sort of picnic or something in the spring for all our athletes. We did honor our 1974 football team. It was their 50-year reunion, so we honored them at halftime at one of our football games. That was really exciting and fun. They all ran onto the field and were super excited and enthusiastic, and it was a great night. We do a lot of youth nights in the fall. I think girls soccer, boys soccer, cheer, and football all had a youth night in which we invite youth groups from Hyde Park. Our youth soccer programs, football, cheer, and they come and they stand and do the pre-game ceremonies with our athletes. They do national anthem, and then at halftime, we recognize them and we give them a little time to play on the field at halftime. And the last thing there is the Miles of Hope. My voice is cracking. Miles of Hope is another fundraiser that a lot of our teams do to support breast cancer, and they dedicate one game to Miles of Hope. They do some fundraising, some bake sales, and all the money that they make from that night goes towards Miles of Hope. Our fall accomplishments, these are just team accomplishments. Our varsity girls volleyball team were section finalists this year, and our scholar athlete teams for the fall were our varsity girls volleyball, varsity girls soccer, varsity boys soccer, varsity game day cheer, varsity girls swim, varsity girls tennis, boys and girls cross country, and varsity boys golf. Last year, we were a school of excellence, which means that 90% of our athletic teams had an average of 90% or higher. My goal is within the next couple of years to become a school of distinction, which would mean 100% of our teams would be scholar athlete teams. So that's a goal that I have for all our athletic teams. So I talked a lot about athletics, so I wanted to make sure that I hit and talked about some of our health and PE teachers and professional development that we've been doing throughout this year. At the end of last year, my first year, I did a survey and asked teachers what they wanted to see as far as professional development or how I could help them. And a lot of them indicated that they wanted professional development that was specific to health and PE, so I've tried to give that to them this year. The first professional development day we had in September, I had a presenter come in and he talked about the vertical alignment of skills from kindergarten to 12th grade. So specifically that day, we were talking about striking and we talked about pickleball. We talked about what striking would look like for a kindergartner all the way up to 12th grade and the progression. And we've really been focusing on our Tier 1 instruction and updating our curriculum throughout our professional development days and our department meetings. And then our second professional development was talking about SEL, and we paired with fine and performing arts with that. And we had a presenter come in and talked about SEL, what it looked like in the classroom, ways that you can implement it, and he also brought out like a whole curriculum with him that he was able to show us. So here's just a couple clips from our two PD days.
For the grand championship in just a few minutes. Music starts, you start, and here we go. Check it out.
We have teamed up a lot on our goals and what we're working on for this year. We really have tried to kind of get out of those silos and like work together and focus on the same things when it comes to finding performing arts and athletics and extracurriculars. Looking ahead, I have two quotes for you here. They're probably not the most famous quotes, but they kind of spoke to the work that I have been doing. The first one is leadership is getting someone to do what they don't want to do to achieve the results they want to achieve. I feel that when we talk about eligibility, a lot of students that come into my office, I had one student who came in a couple of weeks ago and he was like, Miss Fletcher, you really want me to be like the student part of student athlete, right? And I was like, yeah, like that is the goal. And then I have upper students in 11th and 12th grade that are looking at colleges and they're just starting to realize that colleges, regardless of their skill level, are focusing on academics, and that's really as important as their skills. So I feel like I'm getting them there, but we're working towards it, but we are moving closer. So that's why I chose quote number one. And then the second quote is, enjoying success requires the ability to adapt. Only being open to change will you have the true opportunity to get the most out of your talent. And I just feel like with the ever-changing world, especially with our security implementation and society and the way things are, we always have to be open to change and look at things from a different perspective. So that's why I chose the second quote. Moving forward next year, one thing that I just wanted to share, I enjoyed like the baseline academic performance information that I'm getting this year. So like next year would be to more fine tune those supports that we can give, and the rest of this year fine tune those supports that we can give to student athletes that are struggling. I also next year want to bring unified sports to Hyde Park, which is something that I think that we're missing. Unified sports is for students with special needs. You pair up with students that are on regular teams, and it's about a 5-week season. For Section 9, they have unified bowling, unified bocce, and unified basketball. So my goal next year, budget-wise, looking towards the budget, is to implement unified bowling next year, and then the year after, implement basketball and bocce. So that's all I have for you guys today, and I'm going to pass it off to Melinda, who's standing behind me.
We may have some questions for you, so.
Sure.
I have, so on the eligibility requirement, so if, I'm not really understanding it, so if they're failing 2 classes, they are ineligible, and then they have 2 opportunities to be reinstated. The first one obviously is to pass, you have 2 passing grades, and that's done at the next marking period, the next 5 week, or could it be done
So
before
if
that?
so, if you are failing 2 or more, so it's 2, 3, 4, regardless of what it is, you have grace for 1 class. So say I'm failing 3 classes, I have 2 weeks in order to get at least 2 of those classes above passing.
2 weeks.
And if I don't, then I'm ineligible for the next 3. So then it would be the next 5-week check.
So then if they are ineligible because they're failing 2 or more classes, criteria 2 says if they meet these 5 requirements, they can be reinstated. So on day 1, they're ineligible. Day 2, the teacher says, yep, they're meeting all these things. How often is that rechecked? Is that, because one of them is like work is handed in, right? They
So-
can hand it in one day and then the rest of the time they're not. So is that
Right.
revisited?
So I do revisit, especially since I started implementing Students First. I do have a check sheet that they have every Friday that they have to bring back to me saying that they went to Students First and they got that extra support. So in the past, we did have the yellow cards that had the weekly checks. We don't have that anymore, but I do make them show me that they are going to the extra help and support every week and then coming back and showing me that.
So once a week, criteria 2 is revalidated? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm originally about a half an hour outside of Boston, grew up. So I was going to give you a hard time about Tom Landry. But then I stopped and I thought about it.
But
Bill Belichick is not
Cowboys fan.
particularly known for being philosophical or quote-worthy. So I will just say that I think the peer tutoring idea is fabulous. Really like that idea.
Yeah, thank you. So we started at the beginning of the year we were going to implement peer tutoring, and then it kind of pivoted towards the Students First, and then I kind of realized that didn't offer everything that we needed, so I've kind of like pivoted again. So I feel like it's like reminds me of Friends, and it's like pivot. So we're like getting there. We're not there yet, but like we're moving in that direction. And I feel like the students are excited about it too. And I really like the feedback that I just got back from the survey. And I think getting to our athletes before our 5-week checks and our progress reports and grades is going to be very instrumental in keeping them eligible.
Any other questions?
I would just ask, any updates about the winter sports? You know, this gave a lot of information about the fall sports, which is terrific. How are winter sports going? And then any information for the parents about spring sports, any upcoming dates, things they should know about?
Sure. So winter sports have all begun, and we're probably a little less than 50% through the season. So our athletes are doing well. It has been great for the most part. So there's nothing yet to highlight. I feel like we're not like 100% there yet. That's all coming like second half of the season, but like they're doing phenomenal. Our wrestling team has grown each year that since before I've been here, but since I've been here as well. We're in the process of getting another coach for wrestling, an assistant coach, because the program has gotten so large. Our basketball teams are doing great. They did a ton of work in the off season during the summertime. Both girls and boys. Our girls just had their first loss the other day to Lords. It was a tough game. And we were missing some of our athletes that were out sick and injured, so I'm excited to see what they're going to do for the rest of the season. So really all our athletes have been working really hard. Our swim team has been doing a nice job. Cheer has their first competition this week. Gymnastics had their first competition earlier this week, so we're kind of like hitting the pace in January. January is a long month. I got a lot of stuff. So, but everybody's doing really well. So, and spring sports start around March 18th, whatever that Monday is. I can't remember the date. I think it's the 18th. And registration for spring sports always open 30 days before the season starts. So then they would open up probably in February. Yeah, they would open up around February 15th would be registration for spring sports.
2 comments. I love Criteria too, because it's giving students who struggle an opportunity to put in that effort, right? Which I've never seen something like that, and I've known former students who really want to play a sport and they're struggling, like maybe in math, and because they couldn't get the grade up, they couldn't do it. So I like that there's an opportunity that hard work is going to pay off, right? Because that's what's going to get kids to school too if they can stay on the team. And then I just want to bring up, I've mentioned this before, but nobody's taken the bait yet. Elementary, Matt Darling was just talking about before and after school, and how can we get athletics as a part of that, right? We have that new, well, it's not new now, I'm showing my age, the athletic facility, which we always said was going to be a community thing, and I would love to see, for a little while, we had a 5th grade running club up there. Just don't have to respond to it now, but I would love for us to look at ways to get 5th graders, even a 5th grade, 6th grade, so that those 5th graders, when they're going up to the middle school, they have connections with students who are already up there, and seeing if we can pull in some of the younger students to the athletics.
Yeah,
'Cause we know kids
intramurals
have to
would be
move.
like the best way to do that. And then also we do have a lot of our coaches, especially like our newer sports like girls lacrosse, they go to the PE classes in the middle school and try and recruit and show athletes like what the sport looks like, and they bring some of the high school students down to the middle school and show them during PE classes to try and get people interested in our new sports. Girls lacrosse does it, I know Crew does it as well. I think there's one other sport too, but they go into the PE classes and just kind of like try to gain participation and show everybody what the sport's about and why they love it. So
Yeah, I would love to see our older elementary kids being able to get a taste of athletics and get them moving, right? We know kids need to be out and moving, and so just something to.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll pass it off to Melinda.
Next up is Mr. Mail with Fine and Performing Arts update.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Mr. Darling, thank you for hosting us. Audience at home. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate being here just to share a little bit about what's been going on in Fine and Performing Arts. For those of you that don't know, some of you know this already, but maybe some of you don't. Fine and Performing Arts includes curricular music classes, as well as music ensembles, extracurricular music ensembles, those are those that meet before school and after school, visual art, curricular theater, extracurricular theater, our arts and education portfolio, which I'll talk a little bit more about, as well as our summer music experience, which is a free summer music camp for our Hyde Park families. Some program highlights: we have a rich list of electives expanded to include theater offerings. You may remember a couple of years ago we put a new couple of theater electives up, and the first run of those was last year. Very robust enrollment, and we're really excited about the impending renovation of our FDR auditorium. The theater offerings run every other year, so they'll be running this upcoming year. We're hoping to have a new theater to use as a teaching lab for those theater electives. Along with that is participation in our Scholastic Arts Awards. We have a lot of participation in art festivals and art awards, participation in local and regional music festivals. I will say for all of our performances, I reference other performances in and around and outside of the district. We could not do any of that without the extraordinary help of our facilities department. Often the performances happen here on site, but sometimes they happen off-site, and our facilities department is at the ready to help us get everything we need to do what we need to do on the road. We have an ever-expanding arts and ed programming. Lisbeth referenced the North Park mural that's being completed right now, and if you came in through the front door, you will have seen one that we did here at Ralph R. Smith as well. One of the great things about the residencies that we fund through Arts and Ed is that it brings in a working artist to work in the classroom with students, and then the students get to see art happening in something like a public works art thing similar to what FDR did with the WPA. We have mural projects that have gone on all around the school, and it starts with an artist and a classroom teacher working together to get source material and ideas for that mural. They learn about the design process and graphing from a small image to a larger image. But the most exciting thing, I think, is to watch the hallways transform as a blank slate is first primed, then sketched, and then students walking to lunch and to phys ed and to class see this mural transformed with all of the students painting and participating. So it's really quite a great thing that we do with that Arts and Ed. Thanks, Linda Steinberg, for being very supportive of our Arts and Ed programming. We have really super great involvement from our parent groups. Our Hyde Park Theater parents, our Hyde Park Music parents are always very supportive of everything and give an extra amount of love and fairy dust on everything we do. So public thank you to them. They're really wonderful. And as many of you know, you receive a yearly email from me saying for the past 8 years that we have been recognized as one of the best communities for music education. Some of you may wonder, how do we get on that list of best communities for music and education? What does it mean? There is actually a very extensive 130-something, here it is, the survey for best communities for music education. And it asks a lot of questions, of course, about teacher qualifications, about participation rates, about our programming, but also about our budgeting. Is it sustainable? What do our facilities look like? Who are the people that come to our events? What kind of opportunities are there in the community for students to participate in the arts? What other sources of education happen outside of the schools in our community. So when I say it is a community award, it really is a community award. So I'm very proud that we've received that for the last 8 years. The application is due in February, and 9 is my lucky number. So fingers crossed on that. I'll let you know how that goes. So along with some departmental goals, we're linking into what the district goals are, and one of the first is equitable and accessible educational experiences. Beth mentioned that we are partnering on a lot of things, so we put our heads together on that academic eligibility piece as well. And we have not the same level of monitoring necessary. Beth has an extraordinary amount of extracurricular athletic programs, but we have one big one where we really monitor academic eligibility, or where it sometimes comes to play, and that is our spring musical. We have a lot of kids involved in the pit, on the stage, behind the scenes, and that's one area that we've identified where there have been some students in danger of not being able to participate, and there have been some years where there have been some students that have not been able to participate. So this year, very similar to what Beth is doing, we are working with our Theater Honor Society. We've identified students that can do peer tutoring, and we are monitoring that closely to match students up to make sure that we can have every student participate. I did set the goal for 90%, but actually our goal is 100%. We need every student that can participate in that there to participate with us. Another goal is attendance. That's our district wildly important goal as we've identified it. So we are collecting some baseline data this year to see what attendance looks like for us. There are a few things that we're looking at. We've also, on all of our district concert programs, we've included some information on the importance of attendance, so we're trying to spread the word through our families that way. And one thing that I've launched this year is trying to do a little bit of research on the way that participation in the arts, specifically this year I'm looking at participation in music ensembles, contributes to students' feelings of belonging, well-being, and impact on attendance. So I've conducted a survey. I'm going to show you some of the data now. In support of our goal of attendance with the essential question, does participation in a music ensemble influence attendance and/or a sense of belonging at school. Now, there is research that says this is the case, that performing music or participation in the arts contributes to people's sense of well-being. But my curiosity leads me to wonder, how does that show up at FDR? What does that look like for us at FDR? So there are two components to this in-house study. One of them is examining attendance data of students that participate in music ensembles versus the general population, as well as a student survey. So I'm going to share some of the results with you now. There were 108 FDR music students, ensemble students, that participated in the survey regarding the impact of their participation in their music ensemble on their engagement at school. So we're starting small with just music ensembles, not all of the arts, and we're going to see what that looks like. And here are some responses. First, these are the grade spread. You can see heavily weighted toward 9th grade in this particular case. These are the schools that are represented, which pretty much are representative of the proportions of our elementary schools. That small little sliver are a few students that did not attend elementary school with us. Question, does participation in your musical ensemble contribute to your sense of belonging in school? You can see the results there, but somewhat, mostly, and definitely are the large number of responses there. Most students are able to identify that participating in an ensemble contributes to their sense of belonging in school. The question was also asked, in addition to playing music, what other skills do you think you've learned as a result of being part in your music ensemble throughout your school years? You can see the results there: cooperation, creativity, communication, leadership, and problem solving. Very much aligned with what our profile of a graduate is. What I appreciate so much about this is of course that students are getting this, but also that they can recognize that they're getting it. Does being part of your music ensemble help reduce stress or anxiety? Since COVID, but before COVID, but especially since COVID, we've been putting deliberate effort in social emotional learning and trying to look for ways for students to feel a sense of belonging at school. And you can see here that students that are performing in a music ensemble, 34% say it helps reduce stress and anxiety, 45% say somewhat, 18% said no. So, does being part of a musical ensemble inspire you to attend school more regularly? This is the piece I was most curious about. 38% say yes. And Matt, you said earlier something about kids wanting to come to school. Like, how can we get kids to want to come to school? So it was in alignment with much of the research that's out there, our study, that says being part of a musical ensemble inspires kids to come to school more regularly. 38 said yes, 45 somewhat, and 15% said no. So I want to compare the attendance for students in musical ensembles against the general population, and I want to give a shout out to Rick Wirt, who was thanked earlier today. I'm going to thank him again. He did a good job of going behind the curtain to help me pull out some data, and the attendance for FDR, the average attendance from September 4th to January 3rd, so it's almost up to the minute, not quite up to the minute, is 90%, which actually I thought was pretty good. I thought 90% was pretty good. But I asked him, as I said, to tease out the numbers for students that participated in a music ensemble versus non-ensemble students, and you could see that there is a difference, 93% for the students that are involved in a musical ensemble and 89% for the rest of the folks. Now that begs the question, are students that are coming to school more regularly more inclined to join a musical ensemble, or does being in a musical ensemble make you want to attend school more regularly? This doesn't give you a concrete answer for that, so I will acknowledge that and say that the numbers tell only part of the story, right? The attendance piece is telling, and I like to look at that. But we know that engagement in the arts is one of the few experiences that brings us together despite our differences, our walks of life, our experiences, brings us together to celebrate and create beauty together. Sometimes the effects are beyond numbers and beyond words. And it's something, a question that I've been asking my whole professional life. And I've been asking kids, what is it like for you? What happens for you when you're playing music or when you're making art? What do you get from it? And so I'm going to play for you I think it's 46 or 47 second clip of a young musician just starting, talking a little bit about what that experience was like for him. Do you think playing in the orchestra influences or impacts your experience of school in any way?
Yeah.
How so?
Sometimes at school I'll get really, really hyper, and I just need to calm down or get space for me to just be free. And when I'm playing instruments or listening to music, it all usually calm me down, make me feel a lot better.
How long have you been playing the cello?
I've been playing the cello since around 2 weeks into October.
So you just started. Sound pretty good. So far too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you think playing in the orchestra influences or impacts your experience of school in any way?
Yeah.
How so?
Sometimes at school I'll get really, really hyper.
Do you think
and I just
playing
need
in the
to
orchestra
calm down, space for me to just be
influences
free.
or
And when
impacts
I'm
your experience
playing
of school in any way?
instruments or listening to
How
music,
so?
it all usually calm me down,
Sometimes
make me
at
feel a
school
lot better.
I'll get really,
How long have you been playing the cello?
and I just need to calm down.
I've been playing the cello since
Free. And when
around
instruments or
2 weeks into October.
So you just started. Sound pretty good so far too.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long have you been playing the cello?
I've been playing the cello since
Sometimes the kids can say it better than any of us can say it. And I would be squandering an opportunity if I didn't take this moment to share some brilliance and beauty with you. So that was from 2017. That was a tape from 2017. And that student is Tavoris Perilla Rozier, and he is now a member of the class of 2025 and graduating. And he is certainly an example of tenacity and brilliance. And he has agreed to play a very short sample of you now as a soon-to-graduate member of the class of 2025. So, Tavoris, come on up. I have his mom in the wings as well, so I'm going to ask her to come on out, too. Come on in. Oh. Oh. Mom hadn't seen that recording. I have nothing left to say. I know. Me too.
Anybody have any questions?
Just like to say that I'm very moved by your presentation. Melinda, I've seen you a couple of times, and I'm just really impressed with the way you've coordinated your goals and your presentation and your students. And I like
Appreciate it.
that your goal is 100%
Thank
participation.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And I would just add, you're 100% correct, as is Ms. Fletcher. If we can get the buy-in from the students to be interested in sports, athletics, or the fine arts, they're going to want to come to school. It's going to help the teachers. It's going to help them. So that's terrific.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 8.1. Can I get a motion to enter public participation?
So moved, Katie?
Second, Tibbetts.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Please note, as a general rule, public participation is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with the first public participation segment limited to 21 minutes. The segment of time may be modified by the board as deemed appropriate. The board requests that remarks be courteous and respectful of all. Would anyone like to address the board?
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Giuseppe Dorn. I'm a senior at FDR High School. I'm a member of the school community from the sports and the clubs I participate in, along with SGO. So, one of the things that's been affecting our senior class has been the capital project on the auditorium. We have been, since 8th grade, lost our DC trip. We lost our 8th grade graduation as a result of COVID. Over the 3 years we've been at the school so far, we have been under construction constantly, from the 2 new wings over the past 2 years and the new track. We have kept losing different parts of the school throughout our time and been forced to make compromises on activities and things we'd like to have done. Different activities that are going to be affected by the construction are Mr. President. We had to move that up a couple weeks now. Like what Ms. DeMaio had said about the Fine and Performing Arts, our spring concert's being moved to Haviland for our senior year. And that's something that a lot of us in the music program are not very happy about. We all want to be able to use that stage for one last time. Now, while the senior class student government and the executive council officers did get to meet with Mr. Well over the past week, I wanted to bring this up again as it is a big importance to the senior class and to our entire year as a whole. Another thing I'd like to bring up. The role of student government is to represent the student body in the decisions, school spirit, and class events. The most important of those is the representation. We have here Liz, who's the Student Board of Ed rep. However, the selection process is very restrictive for that position. Board Policy 2245 dictates the forming of the nominating committee and says how many people are going to be nominated, who is on that committee, and what the base requirements are. Unlike most other positions in SGO, this is strictly by nomination in order to run. There are many people in the school who don't know how to be picked for the nominating committee. It's comprised of the building principal, a U.S. history teacher, club activity advisors, a student government officer, and any other faculty deemed necessary. By doing this, you only have to be known by those teachers to get nominated. There are many students who don't know those teachers or don't know who to talk to in order to do that. I've asked people about a possible application process in order to be listed as a nomination. I would like to know if it'd be possible to have a committee in order to create that and possibly to amend the policy, as it also doesn't specify what student body does the election, and the 8th graders should have a say in who their representative is going to be when they become freshmen. So that is all I have. Thank you for your time, and I'll be here for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, at this time, we will close public, no, go.
Good
Good evening, board members. My name is Catherine Farrell. This is London Tobias. We are seniors at FD Roosevelt High School. As current seniors, student government officers, and those involved specifically in the planning of graduation, we believe that the reconstruction project planned for the auditorium should be postponed until after high school graduation. If the capital project is postponed to the summer and pushed into the fall of 2025-2026 school year, there would be less events and instruction time impacted by the construction. Respectfully, we ask that the district and the board to reconsider the start date of the capital project in the FDR auditorium due to its interference with the graduation and other major school events that happen in the spring. Thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? At this time, public participation is closed. So I'll address your second question first about the process to be nominated for the student board members. That's the one you're talking about, right? Yep. So can I ask Liz, kind of give you an assignment to kind of work with the student government and kind of maybe come up with a process that we could evaluate that's open to everyone rather than just a select nomination committee to be more fair to others? Because I think we brought this up in the past where is it truly open to all students or is it just the people that are known, right? So we want to make sure that it's fair for everyone to have a shot to become student board member. So if you can do that, work with the the leadership of the student government and give us a proposal, if you could.
Yeah, I would gladly work with them. I think because I work with Giuseppe with student government, so I'm sure we can work something out and talk about it. Because I do believe that his points are kind of true. So yeah, I'll gladly work with him. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then I'll let you talk to the capital project because I think you had a recent meeting. And
Yeah, so just on Wednesday, myself along with Principal Ruella met with several students. I would participated virtually. One of the things that we shared with the students was that we wanted to hear their voices, and so each of them shared what their concerns were. Some of them came up with some proposals and ideas that we had not even thought about. And so we ended that conversation by saying we're going to take that information into consideration. Both myself and Principal Ruella are going to meet with Mrs. Steinberg and the construction team just to see what kind of flexibility we have. One of the challenges that we're coming up against is if things are postponed, as we've realize from some of the capital projects that we just are in the middle of is that things are always delayed. And when we're talking about HVAC systems and new entry designs into the school building, we need to anticipate many of those contingencies in that process. But nevertheless, we heard the concerns, we heard some of the ideas, and we're going to be bringing all that information together so that we can come up with a plan that finds a balance between tradition and some of the things that you want to continue doing, while at the same time continuing to forge forward with the capital project, so that on the other end, one of the things that we have to anticipate and kind of consider are the students that are coming in and the possible instruction that may also be impacted by such delay at the high school. So those number of things that we have to consider, but we certainly heard you loud and clear, and we appreciate the input that you've provided.
any other comments from anyone?
I would just add that your discussion and your speech was well thought out. It was lucid. It was very mature and responsible. So this is what we like to have in open session. So we appreciate that feedback, and I thank Dr. Roman for being flexible to look into that. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 9.1, board subcommittee reports. Have any boards committees met? I know the policy committee must have met at least 25 times.
Okay, so the policy committee met. We did discuss a few changes to policies. They're actually listed here under first considerations. The major ones were, oh my goodness. There was one about, oh my goodness, contracts, am I right? The one about contracts, where under contracts negotiated under a certain dollar amount would be, could be signed off on by the superintendent or a delegate. And the other major one was the one on public participation, and updating that to kind of say that public participation is open to members of the Hyde Park Central School District community as opposed to, everybody. Was there anything else?
Yeah, that's it. Mostly just updating and clarifying and, getting rid of some stuff that wasn't necessary anymore. But no, that's about it. Nothing earth-shattering.
Okay. And I think there's a note in here, DCSBA met on, that's you, right?
That's me.
Committee of one?
So yes, we met recently on January 2nd. So we had a nice presentation from David Shaw, from Shaw Pearlson about local negotiations. I did just share that presentation with the board during the meeting, so you can look at that and we can talk about that privately and so forth. Also, Gully Stanford is in the room now, so good evening to Gully. Gully's a member, of course, of Dutchess County School Boards. We were talking about at the last meeting how there's the lobbying day that's coming up, I believe, on Friday, February 7th, which is open for any board members up in Albany, but also the efforts of the Dutchess County School Boards Association to reach out and have meetings, thanks to the veracity and the help of Gully to schedule those meetings and so forth. So we did just recently reschedule our meeting with Dee Barrett, and Gully told the Dutchess County School Boards about that this afternoon, and I will share that with all of you if anybody wants to be part of that, of course. So, so there is advocacy going on at the state level and the local level through the Dutchess County School Boards and so forth. So I want you to be assured of that with the help of our members, including especially Gully. So that was Dutchess County School Boards.
Okay. Tech committee met on the
Yes,
6th?
the tech committee met, and they created, Richard Wirt, I think his name is, he created collaboratively created a survey for teachers about AI and the influence of AI, generative AI, as we learned, on the school community. And that's going to be rolled out over the next month. He's planning to go to every faculty meeting, but also present it a few days early, I believe, so people can look it over and then fill it out in a faculty meeting.
Okay. All right, good.
One other part of that was that we had an update that Duo continues to be rolled out in the district. So it's coming soon to a board near you where we will need to be able to use Duo to log into our accounts for cybersecurity, as most of the staff are now on Duo.
Which account? Like for us?
Most likely our Gmail account to start, and then it will be on other accounts thereafter. So most districts, you start with your Gmail account, then you integrate it to your Windows account and other accounts.
Okay. Well, Duo is a multi-factor authentication provider that
Yes,
the
just to
district
clarify,
chose.
so like most people are doing at home now with your bank, it's multi-factor. So in other words, to be able to get into your account, you not only need to know your password, but you need either to have an application with a key or a hardware key. So there's two factors to be able to get into the account. So we will also be doing that as a board while we ask our staff to do the same.
Yep, good. That's good. And then Code of Conduct met?
Yeah, so Code of Conduct met on Monday. We're continuing the hard work of identifying common expectations across the district And we have also identified major and minor behaviors and are classifying them and identifying steps to address them across the district. So there are common expectations and common interventions.
Okay, good. Any other committees? All right, moving on to 9.2, board discussion, including any consent agenda items.
I just want to make sure we're on track with the superintendent evaluation this year. I know last year we were a little bit behind, and we had sort of a mid-year review as well. We're keeping track, and we know we're in good shape for that.
Yeah,
All right,
next.
thank you.
We have to relearn the tool again,
Well, after last year, it'll be much easier, I guess.
hopefully, unless they changed it. But next month we'll,
Next meeting,
we'll
we'll do just a mid-year
Okay.
review.
anything else?
I was gonna mention that. Is this a good time to do that?
Yeah, yep.
So before the board votes on the consent agenda, I do want to recognize Mrs. Silva. She has earned tenure. She is one of our dynamic teachers over at Violet Avenue Elementary School. And just for those of you in the audience right now, tenure is a process by which teachers are working diligently to demonstrate their pedagogy, their connections with their community, planning and preparation, using data to support students, and it's a very rigorous process. We don't take it lightly. We actually have our school leaders work with our teachers to really demonstrate that they have earned this right, and so we have no reservations in recommending Mrs. Silva to the board this evening, and just want to wish her congratulations.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, moving on to 10.1, can I get a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 11.1, new course curricula, Monsters and Madness, a Gothic literature course. Can I get
So moved, Tibbetts.
Second, Margaret.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 11.2, first consideration of a new textbook, Grizz Grimley's Frankenstein.
So moved.
Second, Tibbetts.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 11.3, first consideration of policies.
So moved.
Any discussion?
So under this one, under administrative content, it talks about the board being able to waive a second consideration for policies. In particular, it's referring to policy 1230. And I guess the question I have for the policy committee is, are you recommending that the board waive the second review and therefore institute this tonight?
No, that's, no,
Yes.
we're not doing
I heard yes and no.
that. No.
This is the one, Jay?
1230.
Help
So
me
under
out
administrative
here.
comment, board members, in order to expedite our current policy.
Yes.
And so I'm asking the policy committee if you want to exert that, if you want to do that. And if you do,
No.
then do we have to amend? No.
I'm confused.
Am
No,
I
we're-
confused?
We're not gonna waive the normal process.
Okay, thank you. It just says we could, and I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
okay.
No.
I had a question on 1420R. My question was, I read through the policy, and there's no talk about if the Board of Ed is ever going to be notified of inquiries for curriculum questions. And I don't mean that we have to be notified for every little thing, but it just was interesting that in other policies, at some point, if it gets to a certain level, Board of Ed is informed. So I just was curious how that works. Is that just going to be an automatic, or should it be in the policy that when an inquiry is made on curriculum and it goes through the process, if there could be clarification on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I speak to that?
Yeah. Yep.
At this time, what we can do as just part of process is inform the board every time we have a complaint that comes in and goes through the process. We can share that with the board. I think in the past, the decision was made to put this process in place so that the decision went from the superintendent all the way to the commissioner. If there's an appeal, if an appeal is to be made.
Are you good, or you look like you're not?
I think it's important with some recent events that we're aware if there are questions about curriculum or books in our district,
Yep.
right? And it's not worded there anywhere, so I just want to make sure that if questions arise about content, that we're informed, because we're getting the questions, so I might
Yep.
not have.
So I think he said we can add that.
Yeah. What we can do is on 1420, number 5, the superintendent, the designee will review the recommendations of the committee, make a decision, and notify the complainant. And what we could do is the complainant, appropriate staff, and the Board of Education.
Okay.
Am I correct in assuming that any change in curriculum or to library holdings based on this process requires board approval ultimately, or not?
I don't know if changes, I think new stuff, I don't know if changes are required.
So if someone objects to something and the superintendent says, I agree, and that should be removed from the library, the board has no role in that decision? It's a question.
We can look into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So I don't need an answer tonight, but I would love to know.
Yeah, what we could do is.
Yeah.
Mr. Tibbetts, what we could do is we can look into that and get back to the board.
Okay, any other discussion on 11.3? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 11.4, first consideration and adoption of policy. For this one, we're waiving the second consideration. And this is the independent educational evaluations introduction regulation. Per state compliancy, we had to change the policy. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I assume we're waiving the second because there's a time consideration here that's important.
Yeah, and it's,
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 12.1, can I get a motion to enter our second public participation?
So moved, Ed.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Please note, as a general rule, public participation will be limited to 3 minutes total per speaker. The second segment will be limited to 12 minutes. The segment of time may be modified by the board as deemed appropriate. The board requests that remarks be courteous and respectful of all. Would anyone like to address the board?
So I do have a couple more items. One is that during the past 4 years I've been an FDR student, the addiction problem in the school has skyrocketed. Now, it is something that I have brought to Mr. Ruella, and I understand that it's difficult for building administration to handle this issue without blanket searches. However, there are times when you can go to the bathroom as a student in those schools and you're confronted by a vape cloud with God knows what in it and what harmful chemicals, and our students should not be subject to that. In addition, there are days that you can walk during homeroom, the hallways of that school, and you will smell weed, and you think that they are smoking it right next to you. And that is very disruptive to education, makes a lot of people not want to be going to the school. There are times when I've known people that have to go all the way to the opposite end of the school just to find a bathroom without somebody vaping or doing something they're not supposed to in it. My first question for the school board is what is being done to address this issue and what could potentially be done? And I want to know again if there's a possibility to form some sort of group or committee that can revise any board policies or come up with different ideas on how to handle this issue. I have some, I don't have the time here to address them. My second item, I know the electric buses have been hotly debated in our district and in the state. However, I'm not here to do that. I do know that there's been issues with the buses starting. What I'd like to know is, has there been a work log that's open to the public to see, or a log with different data such as the starting range of the bus, the outdoor temperature when they first leave, distances traveled, time spent charging, its rate of charging, outdoor temperature while charging, the rate of discharging, and the ending temperature and the ending range. Having this information much more available with the first bus, using it as a beta test, can see how it will be operating in our district and how it can better be maybe shifted around with different routes. I know that they had the test done with making sure that they could finish all the routes in our district. I understand that. I know the bus has been traveling around different drivers' hands and with different routes. But again, if there's a way that we can make that data public or if we can put that data together. So again, I'd like to thank you for giving me the time to talk. And again, I'll be here for the rest of the night.
Thanks.
Good evening, Gully Stanford, 181 Marshall Road, and also your representative on the BOCE's Board of Trustees. It's a very hard act to follow. That was one of the most impressive presentations I have heard on the electric bus situation. As always, it's wonderfully reassuring to come to these board meetings, to hear your staff, to hear the reports, but also to hear your students, and to know that I live in a school district where our students are getting the best of education. I want to thank you for that. It's sheer, have to apologize as always for the infrequency of my visits, but I'm glad I picked the night where we were hearing about athletics and the arts, and you have really superb practitioners there. I do hope that the presentation was recorded, because I think I should send it straight up to Albany. It should be required hearing for our senators and assembly members as they consider the support of arts and sports in education. But I also want to thank just for the great work that the district has been doing, the fact that you host the Skilled Trades Fair with the county executive and the local senator, the fact that you are so well represented. Ed Spence is the chair now of the Dutchess County School Boards Association, and thank you, Mr. Your words are too kind, but we do have a good team working on advocacy, and we'll be sharing that with you as we move forward. And then the last point I have to make is this is the year that my term ends on the BOCE's board. So I'm here humbly to thank you for your support in the past. You nominated me back in 2022, and to humbly request that when I think sometime in February the opportunity arises to make nominations for election to a further term, I would like to serve a further term. It's one of the great honors of my life to be able to help a little with public education in Dutchess County, and would greatly appreciate your nomination if you would so consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? At this time, we will close public participation. So for your first point, is that a safety committee discussion we can have about?
Yeah, I mean, vaping is in our code of conduct, so we can review it there, and we can also talk to Mr. Ruella to see what the experience is up there.
Yeah, it seems like it's more
Address
enforcement of the code of conduct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's student representation on the code of conduct. I want to make sure we get the student voices
Yes,
on this.
there is.
Yes.
So we have a district safety committee.
He's also part of the Code of Conduct Committee.
Okay, and so the safety committee, and we'll talk to Mr. Ruella and see what we can do to stop that, because it's not acceptable, right, to not be able to use the bathroom without a cloud of smoke. So. The second point about the bus, I'm not sure. We collect some data. The amount of data that you suggested, I think, is tough with temperature ranges and things like that. So, I don't know how much data we're collecting about routes and.
I just want to, there is an EV bus committee meeting on Monday. I think it might be a good idea to see what they have that they can bring to the meeting, because we will also be meeting with the Highland Bus Company, who was one of the companies we originally got a proposal for. So I think it would be a good time. That bus has been on the road for a month or so now. So
Does that committee have public participation, or is it all internal?
We have community members on it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
We have an electric bus committee, if you are interested in joining, and you can participate and do that. See Carl after the meeting, and he'll give you the information to win that. I think the next meeting is Monday.
It's virtual, but we can get that information to anyone that wants it. If you don't mind, also, we are planning to bring information about the bus and how it's been performing to the next board meeting.
Okay. And I do think, you said, trouble starting. I believe there was an issue starting because of the 12-volt battery, right? I think they're looking to see if the cameras were hooked up directly to the 12-volt versus the traction battery was 100%, but the 12-volt was not after the holiday, and it sat there, and I think it drained from the cameras drained from the 12-volt battery.
Montgomery County, Maryland is making the transition to electric buses, and they have an EV director there. And I did speak with him, and he said that was one issue that they were having was the 12-volt batteries that were draining.
Yep.
And he mentioned there's something that an option on the bus you can get that the 12-volt battery can draw power from the larger batteries. And he said, definitely get that on all your buses.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I just bought a hybrid that you plug in, and I thought the charging would charge not only the traction battery, but the 12-volt battery, but it doesn't. So if you leave something on or something's wrong, your 12-volt goes dead, and you can't draw from the traction battery. So I think it's kind of an interesting design that they have. But yeah, so again, that's a discussion for the committee to look at that, to see, really what happened there. And I think Linda, the manufacturer came in, and I think they're looking to see if the cameras were hooked up correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have been there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other feedback?
No, I just want to thank you for coming and bringing up all these issues. We want to hear from students, so thank you, and we hear you. I just want to make sure you understand that we hear you. Thanks.
And thank you for serving at Roosevelt. I saw that you just got your EMT, right? Congratulations. I'm a member of Station 1, so I saw the note.
And I would just repeat, same thing again as we said earlier, as Margaret just said, thank you for coming and making us aware of that. In regard to the vaping, again, having worked in other schools, not Hyde Park, but other schools for 30 years, it is certainly not something that's a challenge that's unique to Hyde Park and so forth. Just a little bit to consider, many times in working in other schools, sometimes students will come in and that smell might be on their clothing, and it might not be occurring in the school. But to your point, as Mr. Zagorski said, it's something we will certainly look into and so forth. So thank you again for your feedback. And then just again, in regard to our friend Gully Sanford, I completely back the idea of him continuing his work. His work is tireless on the Dutchess County Schools boards. He's a man who knows every legislator, what their votes are, and he can, pull that information out for the board, at a moment's notice. So he's a very dedicated individual.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 13.1, any other matters deemed necessary by the board? Okay. I don't think we have a need for a second executive session, so can I get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.